A man is sitting in the British Museum. It is 1872. His name is George Smith. He is a self-taught scholar, son of a working-class family, never went to university, taught himself cuneiform by spending every spare hour in this same museum, studying tablets on his lunch breaks from his job as an engraver. He picks up a broken clay tablet. He starts reading, and then something happens that his colleagues will talk about for the rest of their lives. He stands up from his chair. He begins pacing the room, and then, in front of stunned museum staff, he starts taking off his clothes. Not because he has lost his mind, because he is holding in his hands a 4,000-year-old clay tablet that has just proven that one of the most debated events in all of human history actually happened. Not as legend, not as metaphor, as documented fact. What he is reading is a flood, a chosen survivor, a massive boat, animals saved, a bird sent to find dry land, a mountain where the vessel came to rest. Noah's flood, word for word, on a Babylonian clay tablet written 1,000 years before the book of Genesis existed. And here is the part that changes everything. The Sumerians who wrote this story were not writing religion. They were writing history. And the physical evidence buried beneath the soil of a rock proves they were telling the truth. Stay with me, because what I am about to show you is not a theory. Every single piece of this is documented, published, confirmed by named researchers, excavated sites, and sediment cores pulled from the ground by people who were not looking for proof of the flood. They found it anyway. Before we get to the evidence, you need to understand something about the civilization that preserved this story. The Sumerians were not primitive people sitting around fires making up stories about gods. They invented writing. They invented mathematics, sophisticated enough for astronomy. They built cities with sewage systems and legal codes when the rest of the world was living in scattered mud huts. These were not mythology makers. These were record keepers. And when they wrote about the flood, they wrote with the same precision they used to record grain shipments and tax records and astronomical observations that modern calculations have confirmed are accurate. That matters, because it means when their flood account gives you a city name, a survivor's name, boat dimensions, storm descriptions, and the name of the mountain where the boat landed, those are not poetic inventions. Those are details. The kind of details that only survive when someone was there. The story starts with a man named Ziusudra, not Noah. That name comes later. Ziusudra is the Sumerian original. He appears in a document called the Epic of Genesis, written around 1600 BCE, compiled from sources older still. He lives in a city called Shuruppak on the banks of the Euphrates River in what is now southern Iraq. The gods decide to flood the earth. One god warns Ziusudra. He builds a boat. The flood comes. Everything is destroyed. Ziusudra survives. You have heard this story, but you have never heard it the way I am about to tell it to you, because the version you know has had something removed from it, something that the original Sumerian account still contains. And when you hear what that something is, the flood stops being a religious story and starts being a description of a specific, identifiable, catastrophic event with physical evidence still sitting in the ground right now. The Epic of Gilgamesh is the oldest complete written story in human history. It was carved into 12 clay tablets. The flood account is on tablet 11. In that tablet, a king named Gilgamesh travels to the end of the earth searching for immortality. He finds the one man who survived the Great Flood, now called Utnapishtim, the Akkadian version of Ziusudra, and asks him, "How did you survive? How did you live when everyone else died?" And Utnapishtim tells him, not as myth, as memory. Here is what he says. The city of Shuruppak stood on the banks of the Euphrates. The great gods assembled and decided to send the flood. The god Ea came to warn him through the walls of his house. Not directly, because the decision was a secret, but in a way that communicated the message without breaking the rules of the divine council. Ea told him, "Tear down your house, build a boat. Its dimensions must be equal in all directions. 6 decks, divided into compartments,
It provides
sealed with
what appears to
bitumen
be
inside and
navigational
out.
instructions.
These are engineering specifications, not poetry." The boat was loaded with all his family, all his craftsmen, all living things, silver and gold. Then he boarded. The hatch was sealed. What happened next is the moment that changes everything. Because the storm that came was not rain. The tablet is specific about this. Read it carefully. The text says the god of storms, Adad, darkened the sky so completely that the gods themselves could not see each other. The land was smashed like a clay pot. The Anunnaki raised their torches and set the land ablaze with their terrible light. Fire. Before the flood, then the noise. The tablet says the noise was so enormous that even the gods were terrified. They retreated to the heavens. They cowered against the walls like frightened dogs. These are not descriptions of rain. Rain does not set the land on fire. Rain does not make gods retreat to the outer edges of heaven in fear. Rain does not create total darkness so complete that even divine beings cannot see. What the Sumerian scribes are describing, using every word available to them, is a catastrophic event that involved darkness, fire from above, and then catastrophic flooding. In that order: fire, then darkness, then water, from every direction simultaneously, for 6 days and 6 nights. On the 7th day, the storm quieted. Utnapishtim opened a window. He looked out across the water. Silence. Total silence. The text says, all of humanity had returned to clay. Everything. Gone. The boat had come to rest on a mountain. The tablet names it Mount Nazur, a real mountain, in what is now the border region of northern Iraq and Iran, identified by modern geographers. Still there. He waited. Sent out a dove. It returned. No land. Sent out a swallow. It returned. No land. Sent out a raven. The raven did not come back. Dry land existed somewhere. The animals were released. Utnapishtim climbed to the mountaintop and made an offering. The gods smelled the smoke and gathered around it like flies. And then the god Enlil arrived. He was furious. He had intended no one to survive. But Ea argued on Utnapishtim's behalf. And Enlil, instead of destroying the survivor, granted him immortality and placed him at the mouth of the rivers at the edge of the world. That is the account. Now here is the question nobody asks out loud. How did the Sumerian scribes know about the dove, the swallow, and the raven? How did they know that bitumen was the correct waterproofing material for a large vessel? How did they know the name of the mountain where the boat came to rest? How did they write a document containing every structural element of a Hebrew text that would not be written for another 1,000 years by a completely different culture in a completely different language? Cultural transmission, say the scholars. The Hebrews borrowed the story during the Babylonian exile in the 6th century BCE. Fine, that probably happened. But cultural transmission does not explain the physical evidence. Leonard Woolley arrived at the ancient city of Ur in 1928. Ur is in southern Iraq, one of the greatest cities of ancient Sumer. In the book of Genesis, Abraham is described as coming from Ur. The city has been excavated since the 19th century. Woolley was digging deeper, going through layers, standard archaeological work, and then his shovel hit something unexpected. 11 feet of water-laid clay. Not debris, not construction rubble, not the remnants of a destroyed building. Clean, uniform, water-deposited sediment. The kind that forms when still water sits over a surface for an extended period and particles settle from suspension. The kind that geologists can identify immediately because nothing else produces it in that pattern. 11 feet of it. Directly below this layer, there were artifacts, pottery, tools, evidence of human habitation from one distinct cultural period. Directly above this layer, there were artifacts from a completely different cultural period. The flood layer separated two distinct civilizations. Below it, one world. Above it, a different world. Woolley stood in his trench and calculated. He called it Noah's flood. He announced it to the world. The world believed him. For about 20 years. Then the skeptics arrived. They pointed out that the flood deposits at different Mesopotamian sites did not all date to the same period. Ur's layer dated to approximately 4000 BCE. The deposit at Shurapak, the city named in the Epic of Gilgamesh as the flood survivors' home, dated to approximately 2900 BCE. Kish showed a deposit at around 3200 BCE. Different cities, different flood layers. Different dates. Not one global flood, said the skeptics, just a series of regional floods in a flood-prone river valley. And they were not entirely wrong. Mesopotamia floods. It has always flooded. The Tigris and Euphrates are unpredictable rivers in a flat landscape, and catastrophic inundations were a regular feature of life there. But here is what the skeptics never adequately addressed. The deposit at Shurapak, the specific city named in the specific tablet, dated to approximately 2900 BCE. Now, check the Sumerian king list. The Sumerian king list is a document that records every ruler of Sumer from the beginning of kingship. It divides history into two periods, before the flood and after the flood. Working backward from historical cross-references, scholars have placed the king list flood event at approximately 2900 BCE. The flood deposit, at the named city, at the calculated date. That is not coincidence. That is archaeological confirmation. The flood happened at Shurapak, at the date the tablets say. But that still does not explain the fire before the water. In 1997, two Columbia University geologists named William Ryan and Walter Pittman published a book called Noah's Flood, and they proposed something that nobody had seriously considered before. The flood was not a Mesopotamian flood. It was a Black Sea event, and the evidence was in the ocean floor. Ryan and Pittman had been conducting deep-sea research in the Black Sea for years. What they found in the sediment cores was a clear, unmistakable boundary layer. Below it, freshwater mollusk shells. Above it, saltwater mollusk shells. What this meant was extraordinary. The Black Sea today is connected to the Mediterranean through the Bosphorus Strait, but it was not always connected. 12,000 years ago, at the end of the last ice age, sea levels globally were dramatically lower. The Black Sea was an isolated freshwater lake, smaller than it is today, surrounded by fertile lowlands, inhabited by people who farmed its shores. Then the ice melted. Globally, the Mediterranean rose. And at some point, Ryan and Pittman calculated the date at approximately 5,600 BCE. The rising Mediterranean reached the natural land bridge at the Bosphorus. The land bridge broke. Mediterranean salt water began pouring through. Ryan and Pittman ran the numbers. Peak flow, the equivalent of 200 Niagara Falls, was flowing through the Bosphorus Strait. The Black Sea rose 6 inches every day. The shoreline moved inland at a mile per day in some areas. Think about what that means for the people living on those shores. You go to sleep. Your village is on the lakeshore. You wake up. The water is closer. Next morning, closer still. Within weeks, not years, not decades, weeks, your fields are underwater. Your village is underwater. The graves of your grandparents are underwater. Everything you have ever known has gone beneath a rising saltwater sea that does not stop and cannot be stopped. You run, and you keep running. Where do you go? South, toward Mesopotamia, toward the river valleys of the Tigris and the Euphrates, where the Sumerians were already building cities. Ryan and Pittman proposed that the Black Sea refugees were the source of the flood memory, that their catastrophic displacement, the complete destruction of everything they had known by unstoppable rising water, entered the collective consciousness of every culture that descended from them, and was eventually written down on a clay tablet in Shurapak on the banks of the Euphrates by the civilization that the survivors' descendants had helped to build. But there is still a problem. And this problem is the one that nobody in the mainstream discussion ever properly addresses. The Black Sea flood was terrible, catastrophic for everyone who experienced it. But it was not fire. 6 inches of water per day, rising steadily, does not set the land ablaze, does not create total darkness, does not make noise so overwhelming that gods retreated in terror to the outer edges of heaven. The Sumerian Tablet describes fire before the water. 200 independent flood narratives from cultures around the world, collected and analyzed by a researcher named Bruce Mass at Los Alamos National Laboratory in 2003, describe fire before water. Native traditions in California, South American indigenous accounts, Chinese flood mythology, the Ohlone, the flood of Gunyu, culture after culture after culture, with no documented contact with Mesopotamia, preserving the same sequence. Fire, then darkness, then flood. Mass spent years collecting these accounts. His conclusion was specific: a cosmic impact event, a comet or asteroid, approximately 5,000 years ago, striking the Indian Ocean. The impact itself would have generated radiant heat that set coastline vegetation ablaze across thousands of miles in every direction. The atmospheric entry would have injected enormous amounts of particulate and water vapor into the upper atmosphere, causing the darkness that the tablets describe. The ocean impact would have generated a mega tsunami, and the vaporized seawater would have condensed and fallen as catastrophic rainfall across the entire planet. Fire from the sky, then total darkness, then water from every direction at once. Not for 40 days and nights of normal rain, for the kind of sustained, global, atmospheric catastrophe that an ocean impact produces. And then in 2004, something was found on the floor of the Indian Ocean, a formation off the coast of Madagascar, approximately 30 kilometers in diameter, circular, with the structural characteristics of an impact crater. It is known as Burckle Crater. Dating estimates place its formation within the last 10,000 years. Some analyses suggest approximately 5,000 years ago. An impact of that size in open ocean would have done exactly what Mass described. Mega tsunami, global rainfall, fire across coastal regions from the radiant heat of entry, darkness from the atmospheric injection of particulate, fire, darkness, flood, the sequence that the Sumerian Tablet describes, the sequence that 200 independent oral traditions describe. The physical scar of that event is sitting on the ocean floor. Right now, here is what the complete picture looks like when you assemble it. A massive cosmic impact strikes the Indian Ocean approximately 5,000 years ago. Coastlines across Africa, Arabia, and South Asia are set ablaze by radiant heat. The atmosphere darkens. Mega tsunamis strike every shore in the Indian Ocean basin, pushing inland up the Persian Gulf toward Mesopotamia. Global rainfall follows as the vaporized water falls back to Earth. This is the fire before the flood. This is what the Sumerian scribes are describing when they say Adad darkened the sky, and the Anunnaki raised their torches and set the land ablaze. On top of this, possibly triggered by the same catastrophic climate disruption, the Black Sea event had already displaced massive populations from the north, driving refugees into Mesopotamia. Their memory of total destruction by unstoppable water merged with the collective memory of the impact event. And somewhere in a city called Shurapak, a man survived. He built a boat. He loaded it with everything he could save. He rode out the flood on the Euphrates. His vessel grounded on a mountain to the north as the waters receded. He had grandchildren. His grandchildren had grandchildren. And eventually, one of his descendants sat down in Shurapak, the named city, the city that the flood deposit at 2900 BCE confirms was actually flooded, and wrote it down. On clay, which does not burn, which does not rot, which survives. In 1872, George Smith read that clay tablet and understood that he was holding something that should not exist. A document that bridged the gap between history and scripture, that proved that the most contested story in Western religion was not invented theology, but transmitted memory, not created to inspire faith, preserved because it actually happened. He paced the room. He removed his jacket. He could not contain what he was feeling, because he understood, in a way that the academic world has been reluctant to accept for 150 years, that the clay tablet in his hands was more than a literary curiosity. It was a witness statement from someone who was there, transmitted across 4,000 years of human history, copied and recopied from Sumerian to Akkadian to Babylonian, eventually borrowed into Hebrew and preserved in a text that billions of people have read as scripture, while the original account, the one with the fire and the darkness and the engineering specifications for the boat, sat in a museum in London, available to anyone willing to read it without flinching at what it actually says. Noah's flood was not invented. It was remembered. The Sumerians remembered first. They wrote it down with city names and boat dimensions and mountain names and specific details that archaeology has confirmed in the ground. And the physical evidence, the flood deposits at Shurapak, the Black Sea sediment boundary, the Burckle crater on the Indian Ocean floor, the 200 independent flood narratives describing fire before water, is still there, waiting, not for someone to discover it. It has been discovered, waiting for someone to put it all together, and refuse to call it a myth. In the next video, I'm going to take you inside the physical evidence, site by site. The flood layer at Shurapak, measured, dated, and compared against the tablet timeline. The Black Sea sediment cores, and what they tell us about the people who ran from the rising water. The Burckle crater and the peer-reviewed research that has been quietly building a case for an Indian Ocean impact, while the mainstream debate focuses on rainfall. And the one detail in the Epic of Gilgamesh that every scholar has noticed and nobody has explained: the noise. The tablet says the noise of the flood was so overwhelming that even the gods could not bear it. Modern impact physics has a very specific term for the acoustic signature of a large ocean impact. It is called a pressure wave. And a pressure wave from an impact the size of Burckle would have circled the Earth multiple times. That is the next video.